Dzień dobry, witamy Państwa na kolejnej sesji, tym razem sesji Urban Lab Forum, która będzie podzielona na dwie części. W pierwszej części posłuchamy prezentacji naszych polskich i zagranicznych gości o ich dobrych praktykach urban labowych i living labowych. A w drugiej części, po krótkiej przerwie, zapraszamy na otwartą debatę na temat przyszłości Urban Labów w Polsce, możliwości tworzenia współpracy Urban Labowej, a także dzielenia się doświadczeniami Urban Labowymi. I jeszcze na początek chciałabym zaprosić do częstowania się naszymi publikacjami Urban Labowymi w języku polskim i w języku angielskim, które są dostępne przy wejściu. Jest także tłumaczenie na język polski i w razie potrzeby na język angielski przy wejściu tutaj do strefy. Także przekazuję głos. A i jeszcze dodam, że sesję poprowadzi Aleksandra Zemka.
Thank you, Magda. Okay. Can you hear me? So, good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here and to be hosting this session. Welcome to City 360 Zone. I hope you've been enjoying Katowice and Poland, and that the second day of World Urban Forum was interesting. So, just to tell you why we are here and how the Urban Lab Forum was actually born, we should go back to 2018, where the Institute of Urban and Regional Development first created and drafted the concept of urban labs in Poland. And going back to today, there have been implemented 2 urban labs from Rzeszów and Gdynia, and you will hear the presentations today. And the whole idea of the meeting of today is to network between urban labs, to share experiences, and to learn from the also Polish experience and the pilot urban labs implemented in Poland. So I think it's a really great opportunity that we actually can meet in this kind of a smaller, more intimate and creative space, because that's a space where we can, I hope, dig a little bit deeper in the conversation, especially in the debate. So now I will introduce our 7 presenters, and we will hear brief presentations of 12 minutes in the first part. And then we will have 1 hour to debate, to ask questions. So the first part is purely learning and listening, and then we really hope for an interactive debate where you participate. So our first presenters will be Albert Kreiser and Maximilian Becker from Urban Lab Berlin Medellin. Second presenter will be Joanna Krukowska from Urban Lab Gdynia. Later, Michał Kuszewski from Living Lab Warszawa, Warsaw. Szriachaj Lubmiał from Laboratory of Critical Urbanism from Vilnius. Paul is not here, so there is one presenter that will join us later, but Justyna Puzio from Urban Lab Rzeszów will share the second Polish practice about urban labs, and the last presenter will be Juan Carlos Carvajal Bermudez from City Lab Berlin. So, guys, the floor is yours. You will first, Albert and Maximilian will first present the summer school, the second edition that they've been developing in Medellin, Colombia. So we will learn a little bit more about this experience.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you very much to the Polish Institute of Urban and Regional Planning for this kind invitation, and your whole team, obviously, Katarzyna, Magda, and everybody here. I will stand up over there. My name is Albert Kreisel, and this is my partner,
Maximilian Becker.
And together with our partner Cielo Holguín, we have founded the Fundación Oasis Urbano. So basically the whole presentation is going to be on screen, and I recommend you to get comfortable, because that's going to be more interesting over here. Oasis Urbano is a creative collective based in Medellin and Berlin. It focuses on community-driven development in self-built urban neighborhoods. The Colombian metropolis, Medellin, that hosted the World Urban Forum in 2014, is recognized globally for its innovation and sustainable urban development. In its transformation from the world's most dangerous to one of the most innovative cities, it has demonstrated how urbanism can be motor of social change. Our partner, Cielo, has experienced this change all of her life. She cannot be here today, but we'd like to begin by taking you onto a journey to her community, Moravia, where for us everything began. Moravia was founded in the 60s by displaced people fleeing from the armed conflicts across the country that were plaguing Colombia and causing massive rural exodus. Arriving to Medellin with empty hands, they settled on and around the city's landfill, a seemingly hopeless place that had by then no market value and thus no public attention, but which offered them a chance to survive with what they could find in the garbage, looking for food, materials to build their shacks, and materials to recycle for a living. With the rampant growth of Medellin, also Moravia grew faster and bigger. Despite extreme poverty, violence, and health problems related to the life around the garbage, the community managed to develop a grid of streets, schools, and a solidarity community organization, uniting different cultural roots in their fight for a right to a place in the city. Moravia was by then located next to the city center and had become the most densely populated neighborhood in the country. In the scope of Medellin's transformation projects, 5,000 families from the former landfill were controversially relocated and important public infrastructure was implemented, such as the cultural center of Moravia. The neighborhood was no longer a notorious no-go area, but an increasingly safe, diverse and productive place to live. Yet the pressing issue of further relocations to satellite cities continued to cause critical tensions between the community and the administration. When we first got to Moravia in 2013, by chance, we remained for half a year and realized extensive field studies to get a deeper understanding of life in the neighborhood and the role of Moravia within Medellin. Its people kept on telling us about the menace of eviction and how much they desired to remain in this territory that they had built with their own hands. This was our main motivation to start the platform Urban Lab Medellin Berlin. It was clear to see that in Medellin, like in most cities, the many different social, economic and political stakeholders did not work together, which led to a climate of mistrust and missing out on precious potentials and opportunities to co-create. Convinced that the city needs to be built by all of its members, together we connect the local community with academia, civil society, cultural, public and private stakeholders on site to share knowledge, discuss and build meaningful relations of trust and collaboration. We do that in urban labs, multidisciplinary summer schools at the intersection of academic workshops and community festivals. So far we've realized 8 summer schools in Medellin, Berlin and Quito, where people with diverse needs, dreams and ideas have come together. School pupils, community mothers, entrepreneurs, artists, politicians, activists, so on. Here come the key elements of the urban labs. Multidisciplinary groups come together with the local community to investigate crucial topics. Together they come up with ideas on how to improve the quality of life and begin a collaborative design process, which includes model making and public feedback sessions to facilitate continuous community participation. In order to relate the community to the wider urban fabric, the participants realize excursions, get to know other projects, and partake in conferences where experts and decision makers get to know local realities and discuss on eye level. To get the whole community involved, cultural activities invite everyone from early childhood to the elderly people to joint activities such as community cooking to share traditions and tastes, urban gardening to revitalize the rural roots and plant seeds together, and concerts and events to celebrate the local identity and its ethnic diversity. Finally, each urban lab aims to realize a collective action that builds trust, fosters appropriation, and creates a lasting impact in the community. Here are some impressions of the different activities in our urban labs.
Un lugar grande para un restaurante.
Gimnasio para que vamos más fibra.
Un espacio para las personas de la tercera edad.
Que sea una cocina taller espectacular.
Otra propuesta son las huertas verticales.
Por eso voy a ser parte activa de este proceso hasta que lo logremos. Ese es mi propósito.
¿Qué me gustaría y que hagan eso rápido?
Muchas gracias.
All right. The aim of our process is always to realize projects. So, and since we work in open outcome processes, the results are sometimes surprising, but always based in the real needs of the community. And also tackle like the diverse topics such as public space and mobility, like this project, which was our first one in 2017. The collective renovation of a public staircase, which, as you can see, was in a really bad condition, and in 3 weeks of collective action with volunteers, the community, but also the support of local enterprises and the city, we somehow changed this place into a new public infrastructure and a safe place for the community. Another important topic is local identity and governance, fueled by recently published renovation plans of the city that foresees like the relocation of big parts of the community, and the community is resisting and protesting, and we support them by bringing this topic to the public agenda. There you can see a session at the City Council of the City of Medellin on the topic, which was like a big milestone. And also this project, which is called Mapa de Moravia, the Moravia map, forms part of this process. It's a large-scale map of the neighborhood in mosaic, where every tile represents a house, and it's a playful tool to foster local identification and also knowledge about the territory. Another topic is memory and placemaking. We painted a large-scale art piece of this young and talented dancer called Miguel Zapata, who died in a car accident with just 22. And from its beginning, this place has become a venue for the dance crews of the whole city, and it's proving the potential of placemaking. The last realized projects we want to show today is the Taller Tropical, which consisted of 3 elements: an open classroom built in bamboo, a community garden to foster agriculture just on the opposite side of the street, and finally the last ingredient, which was connected to this one, is a mobile kitchen, which can run around the neighborhood to foster conscious nutrition, and by organizing cooking schools and events. Yeah, before we show you the last video, we want shortly present you our publication, which is called Moravia Manifesto. It was published 2018 by Jovis Verlag Berlin, and it somehow recalls like the learnings of our process. You have a chapter about the history of Moravia, and the heart of the book, you can say, is an alternative planning approach called urban coding, which depends on a decoding and coding phase to understand the neighborhood and to offer like an alternative planning approach based on claims, tools, and scenarios to foster sustainable and inclusive transformations in informal neighborhoods. And before we finish, we want to show you our most present video, the new Taller Tropical.
Develops community-based urban interventions and art projects in self-built neighborhoods like this. Moravia was once founded on a garbage dump of Medellin and has evolved from a stigmatized slum to a safe and productive place. Together with its vibrant, diverse people, we've created an independent community center for experimental education, the Taller Tropical. In 2018, we built a prototype combining a bamboo classroom, a community garden, and a mobile kitchen. More than 10,000 people have participated in its workshops and events, and now it's time to make the project long-term. We expand its concept and spaces, with a cooking school to promote conscious nutrition, a recycling fab lab to transform and upscale Moravia's recycling industry, residencies for artists, chefs and others to foster cultural exchange, and finally, an open, multifunctional space for cultural and educational activities.
This dream is a big one and needs many helping hands. Please help us to build the new Taller Tropical Moravia.
Yeah, thank you. And if you want some more information, you can visit our website or our social media channels. And yeah, let's speak in the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a very vivid and visual presentation. I think we could all feel the spirit of Medellin in the pictures. So now Joanna will explain us their experience from Urban Lab Gdynia, which is very different to yours because it's an online participation platform, the CDIM, based on experiences from Barcelona. So that's the first implementation in Poland. So Asia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm here representing Urban Lab Gdynia, and I will tell you a good practice in co-creation on a case of dialogue platform implementation, the CDIM, which is not very typical for us because we are mostly focusing on social innovation. So that's why I would like to introduce you to this case of co-creation in limited condition. So at the beginning, where actually Gdynia is, because we are here on the international conference. So Gdynia is in the north of Poland. We are part of the metropolitan area Gdańsk, Gdynia, Sopot, so for context, and I will be talking today briefly about civic tech. Civic tech, which is short for civic technology, includes information and communication technology supporting the government with support by community-led teams from different sectors they might be, and which is very important is that it boosts the relationship between the people and the government. The idea and the concept might be different. They might be just for communication, they might be for decision making or political process, and which is extremely important in case of talking about civic tech, not only tech, is the hybridization of urban services. So the civic element is the main goal and the main part of this way, and this is if civic tech is prepared properly, they might be a great example of human smart cities. So this is the new way of thinking about technology in cities to make them more accessible and better. And in a few years from now, there are more and more digital participation platforms, because I will be talking about the participation platform. Some of them are open source, some of them are paid, and you can find a lot of tools that you can use in your cities. And but to choose properly and to implement technology well, you have to, from our perspective, have a foundation. And in our case, the foundation was very based on social innovation, because in 2017, a social innovation lab that I work in as well was developed, and actually our institution is focusing on supporting and developing innovation social solution for citizens and with citizens. So even that I'm talking about technology today, we were always like focused on the social component of the anything that we do. And after that, this foundation from the social innovation lab, we've got the public participation and analysis department. So the idea of boosting those public consultation processes or different elements of how the city works started then. The test starts, and then we had the opportunity of Urban Lab, which is a finished right now the project adaptation of Urban Lab concept, and we have the great opportunity, thanks to EU funding, to Ministry of Development Funds and Regional Policy, as well as support of the knowledge from Institute of Urban Regional Development, to test and to have this dream come true, to just like do this civic tech stuff. And we started with the public participation team. Urban Lab that we are working in is basing on a pentahelix. So in this case, we started with engaging citizens, NGOs, and local government. That was in 2019. So we invited those people. Some were chosen by presidents, some were by call, and they discussed and they thought how to make the participation better. And they actually recommended some elements that connected with organization, experience, and knowledge, as well as testing new concepts. So they recommended to Urban Lab to 3 things: standards of participation, local initiative, and civic education. And actually, all of this knowledge that they recommended, we implemented after this. So, and this is the knowledge basis and the general element that are not connected with technology, but give us the foundation to make things better. And in the meantime, we discussed between 2 platforms, Consul and Decidim. They are 2 based on the same code. One is from Madrid and one is in Barcelona. So we were just analyzing and thinking about, okay, so which should we choose? But after this was 2019. And then stuff changed, because we were thinking about implementing offline. We were thinking about involving and engaging and welcome citizens in real life, let's say, to just like explain the technology better and test it together to make this discussion better. Pandemic actually pushed us to think different and how to deal with this, how to engage those different actors from the city to get their voices into this technology. In the meantime, we decided to go to the Decidim platform, and what is very important and useful in case of open source like this, there is a community of different cities, different institutions. So you don't have to think and figure out everything by yourself, but you can use the knowledge and the wiseness of the community, or the open source community. And after choosing Decidim, we thought how to aggregate all of this knowledge from different sectors that we know that we had to get things done not only basing on our local government knowledge and not trying to create some technology only from one perspective. So we get the IT platform, IT implementation group, and we invited smaller groups, smaller than this offline team that was deliberating about the participation itself. But we really thought about, okay, we have to get all the sectors, all the knowledge. So even that those team was smaller, they were really into this project, and they were thinking openly and sometimes criticizing us and like making sure that it's very good and like nice for citizens. So and also very important element in this case was the IT company, because they was their first implementation in Poland. So they were actually, we have to say that we were lucky that they were actually learning with us and giving us the feedback. So they were kind of in the working group. So during those work of this working group, we see how many stuff can we see in this intersectional context. And on this slide, you can see how many things they've done only in few months, let's say, because those 8 people plus IT company tested it. They analyzed stuff. They thought about accessibility, as well as recommended what should be in this platform. So we actually focus on participatory process, on public consultation, because the diagnosis before was that it doesn't have one place online. It doesn't have like the one place that where you can find all of the information. And the very important element was also dialogue essential, which is just a page when you can get all of this information. How can you be engaged as citizens? So the educational element is very important as well for us. And also, which is especially important in case of public consultation, that you have to remember not only about the citizen who will use this platform, but also about city officers, city officials who will have to put those public consultation in the platform. So also we get some training and templates for make this platform more accessible and more familiar for those city officials. And that's we launched the platform on last year in September, and to make it more interesting, let's say, and intriguing, we invited the citizens to public consultation on neighborhood and living in a cities district to think about their lives on everyday basis, but also because, as you might remember from this slide, there were no citizens in this working group. So we really thought when we will launch this platform, we have to remember to invite citizens to give us feedback, give us information, how they will change it, how does it work, is it fine? So in the same time, there were a public consultation on their neighborhood and living in the cities districts, which is especially important due to the COVID-19 pandemic that was in that time. So especially like talking about 15-minute city and stuff like this was included in this consultation. So we also asked about those elements. But also, which is very important in case of this 3-year test, because Gdynia and Rzeszów, my friend Justyna, who will present later, we tested for 3 years the concept of Urban Lab, not only for our cities and our citizens, but generally for all of the cities of Poland to have the inspiration, but also knowledge. So the open source and the code and the translation that we get are like accessible and available for any Polish cities who have like easier way to make this open source in their cities. Of course, open source is not free because you have to pay the IT workers, but you can be a part of a international community, which is very exciting and nice. Yeah, so the page is still going. The project have finished, but we didn't like stop the platform or something like this. So we can visit. It's like konsultujemy, a difficult Polish word, but it's like we are consulting. And yeah, and more public consultation process are in this platform. So we are very happy to have it. And at the end of my presentation, I put this, let's say, the circle that we actually made a circle because the platform was basing on this foundation of public participation and analysis department. And we engage different actors, and we are still cooperating with it, but we could get the department who are managing it. So without all of those voices, all of these disciplines, the specialists, the sectors, the implementation would not be possible. So I highly recommend it to cooperate with different actors, and that will be finished. If you want to see other cases, because this was just one of the elements that we implemented, yeah, please visit us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for explaining the very complex process of implementing this innovation in Polish participatory scene. And now Michał from Living Lab Warsaw will tell us how they see the Living Lab, which has no space. It's more service-based concept, so his fresh view on the subject.
Hi. Our lab is a little bit different. This is why I decided to call the presentation Living Lab as a Service. As you may know, it's quite a popular term, but I think during the presentation you can realize why I use it. But so we can all be on the same page. Warsaw is the capital of Poland, with the area of 570 square kilometers, 18 districts, and 1,092,000 people. So like big city for a lab. And what's always also different than from other examples, I think we don't have one starting point. When I think about this presentation, I thought where it all begins, and it's hard to say. I think it starts simultaneously in a few minds in the districts, in the offices. I remember when it started for me. It was in July 2018. At that time, I was working in a Center for Public Communication in the city of Warsaw, and we get the new task. Our task was to prepare the publication, encouraging Warsaw citizens to participate more in the life of their city. So, you know, making a publication is nothing really new to us. We do it like we just sit down, writing everything down, then just go to the lawyers and you can print the publication. But this time we really want to get involved citizens, residents, and because it was really important because this was one of the tools that they can really use to participate in the city. So we decided that we use design thinking and service design methodology and invite those citizens, but also NGO representatives and our colleagues from districts, because they could have a different experience than ours. We contact with some university experts, and then with help of the business, we create an offer, and yeah, this whole process took much longer than the 2 months of writing it down and give it to lawyers, but this was more exciting. We use this double diamond methodology, you may know it. We start from the research, of course the desk research, and a lot of interview with residents, with NGOs. Actually, we discovered that we have 2 groups, like one, it's of course the residents, but also people who passing the knowledge to the residents are also users of our publication. So it was also quite important to create it that way, so all of the people can really use it. And what was also great, after when we are making those researchers, we get a lot of knowledge that we can use later on in our everyday work. We have like this new look of what really citizens need. Of course, we've got all of these elements, like we got personas, we got a lot of sticky notes, and all this stuff. And it's really help us understand and give us the way with citizens and residents. We create like 8 or 10 prototypes. Every time co-created it with residents, and we made it. We made the Warszawa po mojemu, which means Warsaw my way. I think the title, what was also chosen by the residents, show that this publication is really from the citizens to the citizens, with the help of the civil servant, because I think this is the most important thing that we should do, and to help get involved citizens in the city life. What is also great, the people really like publication, and they using it in their work when they want to get involved in the city. But also some NGOs ask us if they can use our researchers. One of the organizations used all of the knowledge to make the internet page about it. So it was really great, and for me it was this wow moment, like, yeah, we should work like this. We should work together with citizens, with our partners, to create better solution, because yeah, it took more time, but it's much better, and it's give us and them much more. So I moved from Center of Public Communication to Innovation Support Division and the Living Lab. And the Living Lab is a little bit different. We don't have a headquarter, we don't have a cafe. Actually, we don't have a structure. And, and Living Lab is only a part of our job. We have a lot of different tasks. But we all believe that when we use this methodology, when we use this user-centered approach, we really can change the city, and we think that we can do it together. So in our lab, the first thing what we want to do is to network all of those people who have this wow moment like me and work together on how we can change the city. Also give them some tools, so we think about education, how we can help them work on that way. And of course, we like all of these methods, so we do a lot of testing. So we can say that we want Living Lab for all. We really think that if in our daily jobs we start to think more about users, we start to create more results with them, then we can really change the work of the city. That we can change the city. We started from the beginning. I think it's a good point to start. So we started about how actually civil servants should define problems. For example, when they think about how to make how to make a form easier, it not mean that you have to make it shorter. Shorter doesn't mean easier. And what was funny when we make the form 3 times longer, like for 3 pages, it was much easier for citizens to understand what and where they have to fill, and the civil servant also much faster can operate on this form. So we start to work with how really how people should concentrate about problems, how they should define problem, not only think about solution. And it was just the first step, because with the help from business and university, we create a step-by-step guide. It's kind of the roadmap for teams, how they can create a Living Lab, how they can prepare to find the problem, to solve the problem, define the problem, then make research, and go through all of the process to evaluation. We also try to put it a lot of tools and guidance so they can really use it. The next step, what was important, was finding the tool for team building, because even if people really want to do something, they have to make some skills, some abilities. So you have this tool how to create those teams who can make those labs in the city. And as I told you about testing, we have I have 2 examples, both connected with food, because it's important for me. First one was the Crisis Living Lab. It was created during the beginning of the pandemic of COVID-19. And the main reason to create this Living Lab was to help small local restaurant to survive during this really hard situation. And the second one is a part of a bigger European food trials project. It calls Food Lab. And in Warsaw, we think how to reduce food waste, so we can make a better use of it and don't waste it in everyday life. And from this testing, we have first 2 conclusions. First, people need skills. I know it's simple, but we thought that maybe if we have the book, we had the guidance, they can just do it. But now we know that we have to conduct some trainings and help them to understand and to feel all of these methods. So if they can take this process with us, then they can maybe later on discover their own solution and make their own plans. Another one, teams need synergy. Yeah, it's also really obvious, but it's not. You don't have to just need a right team. You have to know how to facilitate the team. You have to know how to work together, know the process of the group. So this is what we want to work next. So first, trainings of user-centered and co-creation approach, but also we would like to implement agile project management. I think it will be really hard in some part of the city of Warsaw, but we don't give up and we really believe it. And we want to create multidisciplinary teams and to learn people how to work together, because what we see sometimes, we do something almost the same, like with this wow moment, and we don't even know that some part of the city, some office or some district creates something like also a lab or maybe something different solution, and they don't know about it. So we want to take it all together and help us all rise with this lab structure. So yes, our lab is more about service, and we are still learning. So if you have any good ideas or want to recommend something, you can contact us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michał, for telling us how methodologies and human-based approaches can be the heart of a lab. And now Sergej will tell us how they work to transform a post-nuclear town in Lithuania. So as you see, the cases are very different. So
yes, super. First of all, thank you very much, Alexandra, for introducing. It's great to be in this context with this great variety of projects, urban labs. I would say that probably we are different in a sense that we're part of the academia, and so I think we're similar also to other projects because we're also working on creation of cross-sectoral alliances and also promoting participation in urbanism, but we're also working with rather abstract questions. I think that would be the difference. I think there is something with the slides. I think that it's hanging. I cannot really start them. Yeah. So no, it's PDF. It's yeah. So fantastic. Yeah, it's there. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. So we're part of the European Humanities University in Vilnius. And the project that I'm going to present today is not about Vilnius, it's about a small town in Lithuania that Alexandra has just presented. And I think I wanted to start with the rather counterintuitive statement. It's not there yet. Yeah. All right. So I think if to look at the program of this World Urban Forum, and if to look at the programs of similar events, you would see that very often cities are perceived as growing, as in the process of agglomeration and integrating also on the urban scale and also on in inter-urban context, in global context. And I think this counterintuitive statement that I wanted to start with is that fantastic, it's there finally, is that I'm going to talk rather about periphery instead of center, about decline instead of growth, and about disintegration instead of integration. That's something that we were looking at in Lithuanian context and broader in Baltic context. And I think I'll try to talk a little bit about the process, like a research process of looking at that and what we were trying to do with this in a more kind of applied fashion. This is the kind of protagonist of my talk today. It's the town of Visaginas that was built in Lithuania, right on the border with Latvia and Belarus in 70s and 80s, very quickly, right in the forest. Its only purpose was to serve nuclear power plant, Soviet nuclear power plant, back then the most powerful in Europe. When we started to work on it, it attracted our attention from three very bold, very interesting perspectives. First, it was the moment of the first invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and this town was mainly Russian speaking, and it was in media and in existing research it was considered as loyal to Moscow rather. So in Baltic states, like it got personal specific attention, not very positive one. So we were trying to understand, we were interested to understand what's there actually, how it works. Second thing, it was part of this kind of attention to the afterlife of socialist modernism in the region, like in a new socio-economic reality. So it's, I guess in Poland it was very similar discussion in the first half of 2010s. And the third one, also a kind of a tendency that in 2015 the municipal elections were won by urban movement. Also, it's I think in Poland you could also record at this moment the popularity, the momentum for urban movements as kind of mistrusting traditional parties. You know, the national politics, like in in a form of traditional parties. So this is where we started. Also, the format is quite similar to some of the projects that were presented today. So we did conferences, more academic ones. We did workshops, cross-sectional workshops with the town civil society and sectoral experts, and we did 7 summer schools that were somehow an anchor of our work, that were bringing all those players that I just mentioned. This is just a picture from one of them from 2019, but of course there were much more people involved in all this process. I just cannot name and show them all. I would just add that at the beginning we were really thinking about putting our case both in research and in applied perspective in this context of shrinking cities research and shrinking cities practice. That's why our first steps were done in cooperation with colleagues from German who were working on shrinking cities in German context and also in Baltic states context. Actually, in Estonia they're doing quite similar. They're taking quite similar measures that were taken in former GDR in Germany. I mean, urbanist measures in relation to shrinking cities. So we were at the very beginning. We were very surprised about how much kind of hope, how much interest we were invested with our venture. We felt that local community felt very misrepresented and also were very much interested in attention from outside. I already mentioned that it's a nuclear town. I think also today at most of the urbanist events you see the topic of energy on the kind of forefront, but at the same time there is not much attention to the nuclear energy aspect. And I think in this region, like east from Poland, it's really crucial. Like you see on this slide, it's a statistics of a current nuclear fleet, and we see that it's aging, and that soon there will be more and more cases like our town, where the kind of there is a settlement, but the nuclear facility is not anymore operated, and something needs to be done with this in this kind of post-nuclear condition. What is interesting, like how nuclear is different from other types of industry, is that first, it costs really a lot of money to stop and to dismantle the nuclear facility. In this particular case, it's 3 billion euros and 30 years. So, and of course, then you have to store the nuclear waste, which is another budget, and which might take thousands of years. If to think about urban, future of Lithuania, the most defined aspect is that Visaginas would have to store nuclear waste. We are not sure what will be there in 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, but like if there are people there, someone would need to take care of the nuclear waste in 1,000 years. So this just and of course this information is not on the slide, but if to look at the nuclear development today, you see that Russia is one of the main kind of interested stakeholders of this. Of course, it's very military kind of connected. It's another big topic, like how the civic and military uses of nuclear power are connected, and how they are kind of in practice, how they are connected as well. We did, of course, social research on the town's population, and we see that, like, for example, people who came to work here, they used to live, normally they lived in 3, 4, 5 other places of sites of nuclear industry in the former Soviet Union, and often those were closed towns, off-map towns, or towns with military purpose. So this is the kind of the slide that shows somehow the scale that needs, like kind of scholar framework or scholar context that we need to understand, like the sociality of this town. It's this so-called Northwest United Power System that was from 60s and 70s defining the urbanization of this part of the Soviet Union. It was sustained by 4 nuclear power plants. One of them is Chernobyl, that everyone knows, of course, in the south, but also Leningrad nuclear power plants in the north, and Smolensk in the east, and this Ignalina nuclear power plant that I'm talking about in the west. So if to think about the 70s urbanization of this area, we cannot really imagine it without nuclear power. And also this kind of the very specialization of the town that I'm talking about is also defined, let's say, by the scale and the sociality, by the scale of this enterprise. So it was basically producing electricity for tens millions people back then. And when it was closed, also it needs to be considered in this bigger scalar context. So when we were working with the municipality and looking at the investment packages, the strategic documents of Visaginas development, we just realized that very often, or almost always, these developmental agendas are kind of reproducing this monofunctionality of the town. So some kind of one big employer has to come and kind of to replace the nuclear power plant that was closed in 2009. And so we're thinking what to do with it, whether it's even possible to do something with this. And one important thing that we recognize, also we did research in general on this nuclear urbanization in the USSR, kind of creating this oasis of communism, this kind of very well serviced, very well built, high quality enclaves in different parts of the USSR. And we just realized that there is some kind of past dependency in terms of quality of welfare infrastructures, of educational sector, of knowledge sector, cultural sector. For example, if to look at the statistics, we realize that at this moment, for example, 2,000 kids are going for the extracurricular activities in town. So there is a wide variety of extracurricular activities. In the town is just 18,000 people. So it's a huge number, which indeed sounds like a welfare town. And also we analyze the kind of discourses of those people who were leaving the town and then coming back, deciding to come back, and they always were kind of referring to this, that it's a really nice place to raise kids. So it's a very kind of like an oasis. And of course this configuration you don't find in many places in the Baltics, I would say in none, when people are coming back after migration experience, labor migration or education experience abroad. So we decided to understand how we started to work with this notion of knowledge infrastructure, and we were trying to understand how it could be center of the process of retooling the town's purpose and the town's identity. So we started to cooperate in particular with the two institutions in town, the library and the working group for the museum. There is no museum yet, but there is kind of a will to create it. And of course we were working on the scale of the buildings in that in this approaches and these ventures, and but trying also to kind of get more research, social research information that would discipline us in relation of what exactly we do with the building, like how we zone it and what kind of new functions need to be introduced there and what kind of functions are not really needed there anymore. So I would just like if to look a little bit about the formats themselves. Of course we did many focus groups with the particular type. We were trying to map out the types of users, the groups of users and the groups of non-users, and try to apply this kind of focus group approach to them. A lot of participatory mapping experience, obviously, and also combining the tools of table games and of research data gathering tools. So the kind of basically the proposals that we were getting during those events were disciplined in this kind of wider context. So just kind of coming back to the first slide, it is kind of counterintuitive provocation maybe a little bit that I started with. I'm just adding 5 more points that somehow summarize, like also on this rather abstract level, summarize our 7-year work on Visaginas. Is that we expect more attention in urbanist work and urban labs work to the cases where knowledge infrastructures are fragile. There's the issue of tension between digital platforms and institutions of knowledge dissemination, this kind of analog, something that were designed in this in 60s, 70s, 80s. Then of course we need to focus more on infrastructural dimension of military strains worldwide and really take this kind of energy infrastructure from this military perspective, this kind of bitter reality that we have in Ukraine now. Then of course such kind of towns is pushing us to look at the sites that are unconventionally urban in terms of their purpose, then growth decline history, in their relations to the outside. And of course, this energy topic that I mentioned already, to look more at the conditions of possibility and long-term effects of power grids integration and disintegration. Unfortunately, I didn't have much time to talk about it today, but of course it changed a lot, all this energy landscape in the region, the closure of this nuclear power plant, which is also getting more and more relevant with the Russia's invasion in Ukraine. And the fifth one, also more attention to practices of diversification and expansion of the range of stakeholders in applied urbanist work. Just the last slide, a little bit of advertising. The book that summarizes the projects was just out in December, so those who are interested, I would be really, really happy to talk. Thanks a lot for your patience.
Thank you very much for sharing your more academic approach. I think Paul joined us, so you'll be the last one to present, or? Okay. Now Justyna will present in Polish, so in case if you need translation and you don't have the headphones, then please...
Yeah, you can take the headphones near the entrance, or ask for the headphones, and we can give you. No, just don't go. We will give you.
And from the audience, is anyone needs translation from Polish? Okay. Yeah. Justyna, to jeśli jesteś gotowa.
Jest.
To
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Jeszcze może poczekajmy na 3 osoby potrzebują słuchawek, także może minutę i zaczynamy.
Dobrze. Okej. Możemy zaczynać?
Let's start.
Dziękuję.
Zacznijmy.
Dzień dobry Państwu, ja nazywam się Justyna Puzio, jestem pracownikiem Urban Lab Rzeszów w Urzędzie Miasta Rzeszowa. Chciałam Państwu opowiedzieć o naszej rzeszowskiej akceleracji. Nasza rzeszowska akceleracja wchodzi w skład inkubatora innowacji i składa się z 3 faz. Pierwsza faza jest to faza poszukiwania pomysłów, do drugiej fazy przechodzą pomysły, które powiedzmy są doszczegóławiane i dopracowywane. Natomiast trzecia faza jest to faza takiej ewaluacji i wdrożenia. Obecnie przeprowadziliśmy 2 nabory do naszej rzeszowskiej akceleracji. W ramach Rzeszów to my, bo pod takim powiedzmy hasłem kryje się nasza akceleracja, poszukiwaliśmy pomysłów na przestrzeń przyjazną dla mieszkańców, rozwiązania służące ułatwieniu poruszania się po mieście oraz w zakresie zieleni miejskiej. W 2 naborach mieszkańcy zgłosili nam 36 pomysłów, z czego 6 pomysłów zostało wdrożonych. I pierwszym pomysłem, który wdrożyliśmy, było czmielowisko. Czmielowisko to pomysł naszych rzeszowskich pszczelarzy, braci Szela, gdzie sami, że tak powiem, przygotowali i pomysł i zaprojektowali wszystko. I żeby wdrożyć pomysł odnośnie czmielowiska, do współpracy zaprosiliśmy mieszkańców, jak również pomysłodawców, tak powiedzmy pierwszego tematycznego ogrodu powiedzmy z trzmielami ziemnymi w Polsce. Mieszkańcy tutaj bardzo się zaangażowali w pracę i w przygotowywanie tej pryzmy, w której zamieszkają trzmiele. Dzieci miały tutaj bardzo fajną zabawę i przy tym sporo się nauczyły. Efektem końcowym, który mogą zobaczyć mieszkańcy i goście, którzy odwiedzają nasze miasto, jest już taka gotowa pryzma, gdzie można obserwować trzmiele, można tutaj bardzo miło spędzić czas, więc zapraszamy do odwiedzenia. Tutaj mamy też na zdjęciu pomysłodawców. Kolejnym projektem i pomysłem, który został wdrożony, jest mural ekologiczny, mural antysmogowy. Mural powstał przy współpracy ze Szkołą Podstawową nr 11 w Rzeszowie. Pomysł na, powiedzmy, mural i zaangażowanie tutaj szkoły to też jeden z naszych mieszkańców. Wybranie, powiedzmy, obrazu do projektu rozstrzygnęło się w 2 etapach. Pierwszy etap to był konkurs ogłoszony wśród uczniów, gdzie uczniowie zgłosili około 40 prac, z których kapituła, powiedzmy, konkursowa wybrała 10 i te 10 prac zostało poddanych ocenie mieszkańców i to tak naprawdę mieszkańcy z Rzeszowa wybrali projekt, którego autorem jest Ola Dankiewicz, uczennica obecnie 8 klasy Szkoły Podstawowej 11. Mural tak przełożył na ścianę tejże szkoły nasz rzeszowski artysta, graficiarz Michał Czerko. Mural powstał przy wykorzystaniu farb fotokatalitycznych, ekologicznych farb, które same się oczyszczają. Mogę dodać, że mural bardzo wzbudził duże zainteresowanie wśród mieszkańców. Kolejnym takim projektem, który został wdrożony w naszej akceleracji, to jest ławka solarna, ławka, na której mieszkańcy mogą naładować swoje telefony za pomocą USB lub indukcyjnie, tu oczywiście przy niektórych telefonach. Ławka stoi w parku, w tej jedności macierzy z Polonią, w Rzeszowie, tutaj przy ulicy Księdza Jałowego. Kolejnym projektem, który wdrożyliśmy w ramach akceleracji Rzeszów to my, jest, powiedzmy, jest to pomoc, że tak, zwierzętom dziko żyjącym powiedzmy w przestrzeni miasta. Tutaj mamy na uwadze budki dla jeżyków i domki dla jeży. I w ramach tego rozwiązania wdrożyliśmy i rozstawiliśmy 100 domków dla jeży i rozwiesiliśmy 400 budek dla jeżyków. Kolejny pomysł zgłoszony tak naprawdę przez Szkołę Podstawową nr 25 w Rzeszowie. Jest to pomysł na ogród społeczny, ogród owocowo-warzywny. Pomysł tutaj szkoła, czyli ogród powstał, powiedzmy, w samym centrum osiedla Baranówka, na dosyć dużym, że tak powiem, blokowisku, jeżeli mogę tak określić. Tutaj uczniowie szkoły zaprojektowali ogród, gdzie rzeszowscy architekci przełożyli go na projekt taki rzeczywisty. Tutaj mamy na zdjęciu dzieci, które na początku wiosny zasadziły i posiały swoje warzywka. Tutaj już możemy zobaczyć, jak dzieciom uprawa, powiedzmy, się udała. Dzieci bardzo chętnie korzystają ze swoich upraw. Próbują, tu też jest dla nich fajna zabawa i lekcja biologii czy przyrody. No i chętnie się dzielą swoimi, że tak powiem, uprawami tutaj z prezydentem. Dziękuję Państwu bardzo za uwagę i zapraszam do Urban Lab Rzeszów.
Dziękujemy za prezentację. Now we will switch back into English, and the next presentation will be Juan Carlos about the intelligent irrigation systems for the trees. So another very, very different project. So please, the floor is yours.
And the City Lab Berlin as well.
Yeah, the City Lab Berlin.
All right, thank you very much for the invitation. Actually, I'm very glad to be here at the WUF and to present about our work at the City Lab Berlin. So, yeah, I'm Juan. I am project manager, product owner at the City Lab Berlin. And yeah, the City Lab Berlin is prototyping and innovation lab for the city of the future. We work mostly with the city of Berlin. The City Lab itself is, let's say, not an organization, it's a project of the technology foundation of Berlin, which is down there. So our host organization is the Technology Foundation of Berlin, which is supported by the city of Berlin. So just for you to know that we are also part of a, let's say, bigger organization. This is our base, so to say. We are located in the Tempelhofer Feld, in the Tempelhofer Airport. This is a historical place in Berlin. It's a very nice space, a little bit vintage. It's protected by heritage law, and so we cannot change a lot of things there, which is sometimes a problem, but regardless, it's very nice. It has a lot of wood panels, and it has this vintage feeling to it. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. The City Lab Berlin is part of the Technology Foundation of Berlin, which has actually a very broad portfolio of projects, so to say. The Technology Foundation also works with cultural institutions and associations. They also coordinate the Open Data Information Point, which is, we work very closely together with this Open Data project, and there are other organizations such as the Competence Center for Water of Berlin, which we work together. Yeah. So at the City Lab we do a very broad also range of activities. As other City Labs, we also work on organizing workshops, meetups and events. We have a small exhibition, and we also have co-working space where similar projects or similar companies can use to as a working space. So here are a few pictures. This is the co-working space. This is our exhibition, where we have a few exhibits and hopefully in the future more. And as I say, we work a lot on formats such as participation, organizing workshops, a lot of design thinking as well on identifying ideas, precising or identifying the problem, formulating a solution, prototyping, and then iterating to refine the solution, and working with the stakeholders to find also their needs, and kind of like working together with the people to find solutions for the people. And this is also very important focus of the City Lab, that we work together with the administration, and a very big challenge is for us is that the administration in many cities moves at a very lower pace, right? So institutions are designed to keep order in society. They are designed to keep certain processes, and this is for sometimes for very good reasons. But this hinders, this blocks kind of innovation. So at the City Lab, we also are concerned on how to bring innovation to the institution of Berlin. And design thinking is one approach. And part of design thinking is, for example, presenting our projects as experiments. So it's not going to be permanent. It's not going to be a systemic change that will endanger this institution. It's just going to be something temporary that they can test, and they can see if it will work. And if it does work, then they can slowly change. Or if it doesn't, we can adjust it in a second iteration. But a big part of our challenge is exactly breaking these barriers, breaking these mental fears of the administration. And we have, we have a very broad. I will come back to the back slides. We have a very broad theme, very diverse, and I think this is one of the powers of the City Lab. We have everything from front-end designers, front-end developers, back-end developers, service designers, graphic designers, also experts in geospatial data, and also scientists and event managers. So we have a very broad palette, or very broad set of skills in the City Lab, and I think this is one of our strengths. Yeah. So as I say, it's very inclusive, it's very open, and we work with agile methods, which I think is very easy to understand but very difficult to master. So the process of agile is actually very easy to understand, but bringing this into our own organization is sometimes not so easy, and let alone for the administration, right? So if you are familiar with the methods, planning the sprints and dividing the task and doing this in this agile way takes more than the plain understanding of how does it work. It also takes persons that are capable of working with this agility, of getting things done, and we work also on this area. So we have some projects that we host at the City Lab. This is, for example, Fix My Berlin. This is one of the companies that is located in the co-working. They show, for example, the actions that the city of Berlin is taking to improve the bicycle infrastructure of the city, so that the people are better informed. So as you can see, in this case, they are creating a new path for the bicycles, and they also explain the goal and the background of this measure. We also prototype with sensors, and we have a little prototyping laboratory for hardware. And this particular sensor is interesting. I will come back to it because it measures I think this measures the amount of water that is in the soil of trees. I will come back to that point. This is a very important project for us. It's about watering trees in the city. It's called Gießen Kits, which translates to something as watering or irrigating the neighborhood. And the idea is that you have all the trees of Berlin, all the city trees of Berlin in this map, and you can kind of say when you are you can kind of adopt a tree, and you can enter the data when you are pouring water on this tree, so that other people know that somebody's taking care of this tree and they don't pour water again, so to say, and also to create this community of people that are taking care of trees. And you see there is color code. This represents the amount of rain that has fallen during the last 30 days. So this is also to inform the people how is kind of the weather situation in the city, so that they can know, oh, all right, in the last 30 days there was no rain, there was kind of a drought, so maybe the trees need special help. Yeah, and this is the project that kind of leads to the project where I am working on, and I will tell you a little bit more about this project. It's called Quantified Trees. So basically, the amount of rain is not exactly a good predictor of when the trees will need water, because other factors come into play. There is not only surface water on the trees, there are different levels. The soil can store water actually for a longer period of time, so sometimes you have groundwater beneath the surface of the city that you don't see. So on the surface you think that the soil is dry, but it might be that beneath the soil there is plenty of water. Yeah. So this is a complicated topic, soil and the amount of water that is in there. So predicting when a tree will need water needs kind of a long time to develop, and this is what we are doing in this project, which is called Quantified Trees. It's an intelligent irrigation prediction for city trees. So what we are doing is developing together with partner an intelligent, this means artificial intelligence based model that will take different parameters and will predict when does a tree probably needs water, so that we can help the city and also the citizens to take care of the city trees. How do we do this? The city of Berlin, of course, is also taking care of the trees, and they are also very competent. They have installed sensors in many of the trees of the city and different levels, 30 centimeters, 60 centimeters, and 90 centimeters below the surface of the floor, and they monitor how much water is available there. This is already a very big help for the city. However, there are other factors that come into play. For example, irradiation. So a place that gets a lot of shadow will evaporate less water as compared to a place that is exposed constantly to the sun. This will need more water because it will evaporate more water naturally. So based on these parameters and with the help of artificial intelligence, we can calculate which trees will need more help or will need more water. And as part of the project, we are developing a module for citizens to inform them about city trees and sensibilize or raise awareness about the needs of city trees, because they have special conditions as well. City trees are kind of isolated compared to, for example, the forest. All the trees are together and they protect each other from radiation, for example, whereas a city tree which is isolated will get much more radiation, and this also affects them. Also, city trees which are isolated are exposed to mechanical damage, for example, accidents with cars. They are also exposed to waste, or they are also exposed to the salt that is poured in winter. So they have very extreme conditions, and that's why we need to sensibilize and raise awareness in the citizens about why we should take special care about city trees. And the other module that we are developing is for the authorities, which is more of a dashboard, more of an overview of all this data that comes into play. The trees, the kind of the tree, the age of the tree, when was it planted, is it in the shadows, how do we calculate the amount of water that this tree has at the moment. All this we are going to present in a dashboard for the authorities, so that they can take better decisions. They can have informed decisions on when do they pour water on trees. Also, why? Because this is drink water. This is this is potable water that is a scarce resource. So we have to take care or optimize the irrigation. We also have other projects. I extended myself a little bit. This project, Stat Pools, is about collecting data together with citizens. The team there created a very amazing platform where they collect data from sensors, and they invited citizens to install these sensors across the city and kind of take these pools from the city, kind of measure how the city is going. This is almost ongoing project, but it will be finished soon. And another actual project is Free Move, where they look at the data that kind of escape us when we move around the city, because I don't know if you're familiar with MAC addresses, but when you move around, you are kind of spilling data without noticing, and this can be used to track you, and this is the main topic of Free Move. So thank you very much for your attention. These are my contact data if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Juan. It was very precise, and I think we all can imagine how the system works. So it was very like designer's perspective. Now we will go to our last presentation, and then we will take a short break for a coffee. We will reorganize the space, so please stay with us for the debate and the more informal part. And now Paul from City Excel from Amsterdam will share his experiences.
Hi. Can you hear me? Thank you. Hi. Okay, that's better. Yeah, I had a bad trip up here. I was late, and I'm so sorry that I missed all the other presentations, but I couldn't do anything about it. But I'm happy to be here now. So I'll make up for it by having a really great story for you, I hope. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm Paul Manwaring. I'm from Amsterdam, but I'm American. I speak Dutch. I've lived there for 22 years now, and I am a co-founder of the City Innovation Exchange Lab. And the City Innovation Exchange Lab is very happy to be here. Thank you, Magda, and the other hosts. I'm here to tell you about some good practices. So, CDXL is not a company or a project. It's a project with the City of Amsterdam CTO office, the innovation team, and partners, and the Responsible Sensing Lab of the Amsterdam Metropolitan Solutions Institute. It's a handful. And we co-created together the Responsible Sensing Toolkit. And we worked with the Netherlands police on this. So this is an interesting story, hopefully. You'll find it interesting. I'll give you a little bit of background. Why did we make the Responsible Sensing Toolkit? Well, since 2015, I've been working with the CTO office as co-founder of the city the IoT Living Lab, and we started off with Sail Amsterdam, which is one of the world's largest free public events with 2.3 million visitors over the period of 3 days in the center of Amsterdam, and we wanted to implement IoT ecosystems, open ecosystems, so we could help people find things easier and make it a more pleasant experience. And we worked with the police as well back then to help people find places to go and to divert traffic, so it would be a safer, more pleasant experience. And that worked out, and then we continued to work with the city until 2017. We decided, from all of our experience, and we had a lot of experience with living labs and projects and collaboration, we decided that it would be a good idea to take a step back and work on a toolkit to address ethical and privacy issues when you're talking about sensing, because of issues like GDPR, but also privacy rights and digital dignity. So we created that so that we could protect digital rights, basically. And if you want more information about CXL and what we do, you can always go to the website. I'll start talking about a little bit about how we created the toolkit. We did more than 20 workshops. We created videos. We did interviews. We gathered a lot of information, and we created a bunch of resources with these city experts, including the police, but also Douwe, for instance, who's a data ethicist, and also Beryl Dreyer, who's the privacy officer for the City of Amsterdam, who is really very influential in the legal aspects of it. And all the time, just really searching for all the compelling stories and examples and resources that would be valuable to make sensing projects in cities more ethical. And that led us to the Responsible Sensing Toolkit. After 2 years, it was published in March by the Responsible Sensing Lab, and it's available online. You can always go there to take a look at it. It's a 6-step process, and this process is quite intuitive, and you can go to the Responsible Sensing Lab website, and again, oh, it doesn't play the movie. That's too bad. It kind of scrolls down and kind of shows you everything, but you can explore it yourself. But I want to tell you more about the experience we have with the police. So the police have a project to make public spaces safer. What they want to do, or what they are doing, the goal is to get weapons out of the hands of kids. So, but also adults. But there's been a rise in young men carrying knives in the city of Amsterdam, well, in the Netherlands in general. And sorry, I'm very thirsty. And so we got together with representatives from 4 areas of Amsterdam. We call them credible messengers who have a lot of contact with citizens on a regular basis, and the police and other stakeholders in the city of Amsterdam. And we began with a design thinking process, basically. Problem definition, we're looking at empathy, expansive thinking, and experimentation as the guiding principles. And we had an open dialogue about the problem definition of why do kids carry weapons and what are the possible solutions. So this open dialogue was the beginning of applying the Responsible Sensing Toolkit in a very practical way to a very, very controversial but important project. And the first conversation led to the first iteration of we call the selectiepaaltje, the selection poll, which is simply a way that the police can guarantee that in a transparent form factor that nobody's being socially or culturally profiled, so that we're protecting the dignity and the rights of the cultural expression in any way, shape, or form. There's no way that anybody can be targeted by an individual police person. They would go up to the pole and they push the pole, and the pole basically says, you're going to be screened, or you're not going to be screened. So go left, go right. It was and that solution came from one of the citizens. And the first iteration was created by a citizen scientist named Renee, who is part of a bottom-up citizen science group called Sense Makers Amsterdam, in cooperation with the police. And this is Gert-Jan Staal, and the movie won't play, but I can explain it to you. He's demoing the second iteration of this, where it's more interactive. It actually has sound, and it says in a very nice way, "You've been selected. Please go left, go right." So it's transparent. It has a form factor. It's engaging, and there's no way anybody can be culturally or socially or ethnically targeted for screening. And I have to give some credit to the Marine Terrein Amsterdam, which is the living lab that we work in mostly, and we do a lot of experimentation there, and the Amsterdam Metropolitan Solutions Institute that helped with they work with the city to create the Responsible Sensing Lab, to publish the toolkit. And it is playing.
Follow the arrow. You see the arrow, I can change that to the left or to the right. So
U mag doorgaan. Volg de pijl.
not too much.
You can pass. Follow the arrow. U wordt gecontroleerd. Volg de pijl. You'll be checked. Follow the arrow. U wordt gecontroleerd. Volg de pijl. You'll be checked. Follow the arrow.
So that was just last week, and it's really kind of exciting because this is a really very practical application of technology and getting the citizens and the police together, which is kind of doesn't happen very often, in a very productive, practical way to solve a very serious problem. And so the mayor's happy, and the city's happy, and luckily we're going to implement it in 25 spaces in the city in October. For a 3-month pilot, and we're selecting the city, the locations now. I'm writing up a recommendation, and we are ready to put this pole in the city as a living lab experiment. Thank you very much. You can always contact me for questions. You can visit the websites. I love telling stories. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Paul. So that was the last presentation. You will be able to ask questions to all the presentations after the short break. So now please enjoy the coffee, water, juices and anything you can find in that corner, and we will rearrange the space a little bit, and let's meet in 5 to 7 minutes. So see you after the short break.